Hello and welcome to our evening news from our Vox Africa studios in London. I am Pamela Bonkio. Let's have a look at today's major headlines. South African miners are finally cleared of murder charges, but the age-old apartheid law raises some serious questions about overhaul of the judicial system since the end of apartheid 18 years ago. Another oil spill. How much more can Nigerian waters take as ExxonMobil reports spills stretching over 15 miles? And are the wounds really healed as a margin veils the sectarian divide between Catholics and pro-British Irish Protestants in Belfast? Prosecutors in South Africa have provisionally withdrawn murder charges against 270 miners on Sunday. The miners stood accused of murdering their 34 colleagues who were shot dead by police at clashes in the Platinum Lonmin Marikana mines. However, they could be recharged when police investigations are complete. There had been public outrage at the charges made under an apartheid-era law under which the miners are considered to have had a common purpose in the killings of their co-workers. The killing of the 34 mine workers by police has been the worst seen in South Africa since apartheid came to an end in 1994. Here is more from Acting National Director of Public Prosecution, Nomkombo Jiba.
Following the intense deliberations by the leadership of the NPA and after consulting with the police, I have taken the following decision. That the decision and pronouncement on final charges to be preferred against any persons involved will only be made once all investigations have been completed. The murder charge against the current 270 suspects, which was provisional anyway, will be formally withdrawn provisionally in court on their next court appearance. The miners or protesters or the accused persons are to be released conditionally on warning and their case postponed pending the finalization of investigations. I wish to emphasize that the decision to institute murder charges against the miners is based on sound principle, which has not only been part of our legal system for decades, but continues to remain relevant and applicable in our democratic dispensation. The NPA has applied the principle in many cases before. In its application to this specific case, that would therefore not be unique.
Islamists in Mali have retaken the northern town of Douentza. They defeated the local militia who were trying to wrest control of the rebel-held north. A mix of Islamists control two-thirds of northern Mali, having hijacked a rebellion initially launched in January by Tuareg rebels seeking independence. Algeria, on the other hand, is said to be investigating reports of an execution of one of its diplomats held by the same Islamist group, Mochwa, which has got strong links with Al-Qaeda in the region. Mali's army has been in tatters since its hierarchy crumbled during a coup to oust the country's president in March this year. Efforts to tackle the crisis has been undermined by Islamists and militias. An oil spill near an ExxonMobil oil field off the southeast coast of Nigeria spread along the shore for about 15 miles. Jennifer Anafiakwa reports.
Fishing communities in Nigeria's southeast coast are demanding action from the government after an oil spill near an ExxonMobil oil field polluted fishing waters. Bar Producing Nigeria, a joint venture between ExxonMobil and state oil firms, said in July that it was helping clean up an oil spill near its Ibeno field in Akwa Ibom State, though it did not know the source of the oil.
Mobil continue to deny that there is no oil spill, but here you are. This the one very recent. They must have poured tipo right in the high sea, but they cannot deny that this is not oil.
Oil spills are common in Nigeria, where enforcement of environmental regulation is lax and armed gangs frequently damage pipelines to steal crude.
Since the spill occurred, fishing activities have been reduced. and we buy fish at a very high cost, which makes it difficult for us to resell it to customers. We are faced with hardship because our income has also reduced. Imagine, I used to buy shrimps for $16 US. Now it goes for about $31. How will I make a profit?
Decades of oil production in Nigeria's Niger Delta, where one of Africa's longest rivers empties into the Atlantic, have turned parts of it into a wasteland of oily water and dead mangroves, with thousands of barrels spilled every year. Oil companies say theft by criminal gangs is responsible for most of it.
We affect them another way because they make the fish to migrate, because all of them will run for the chemical. And that is why sometimes, anytime we have the experience of the spill now, with the fishermen will normally survive it more than any other person. Like the impact of the bonga, we still on till today, that make the scarcity of fish in this, even in this region, we will not get much. We still suffer that very one now. Another one for Mobi. And what is really annoying out of the thing, because we sell the oil in the Mobi facility, but they are telling us that it's not their own oil, it's mystery. But what we are waiting for now, waiting for the government to bring the fingerprinting out.
A landmark United Nations report in August last year slammed the government and multinational oil companies, particularly Shell, for 50 years of oil pollution that has devastated the Ogoniland region. One community is suing for compensation in a London court. The government and oil majors have pledged to clean up the region and other parts of the Delta, but locals say they have seen no evidence of action yet.
Coptic Christians in Egypt live in fear following the election of Mohamed Morsi as president. The Copts feel that their freedoms will be threatened under the rule of an Islamist state. In his cabinet appointments, Morsi devoted just a single seat to Christians. Some regard this decision as unfair representation, but others hold it is a good move. Many Copts did not vote for Morsi during the elections for fear that his tenure will undermine their religious rights and introduce a conservative cultural outlook. Egypt's political transition has equally left many liberals worried. This is because they feel that the Islamist-dominated Constitutional Assembly will have undue influence overwriting the constitution. Let's hear more from Youssef Sidom, Botani newspaper chief editor, and from Kamer Bushara and Margaret Ramses, Christian Egyptians.
The future for Copts does not hold a feeling of optimism. Most Copts have fears about their future in Egypt. This has led them to openly consider the option of immigrating. If they can leave Egypt, I believe that the challenge will soon be resolved. It will not remain in its current situation for more than a year from now, because the challenge lies in drafting Egypt's new constitution.
The presence of a president with a Muslim Brotherhood background will definitely affect us, because he will not be able to take off the cape of the Muslim Brotherhood. Therefore, he will constantly listen to them and try to please them, because they can easily turn against him. And if they turn against him, then there will be a problem.
The future is definitely frightening, especially for the youth, because we, the older generation, have already lived. But the youth, only God knows what kinds of lives they'll live. What will they be allowed to do, and what will they not be allowed? Will they be able to live a normal life, or will they be under the religious stream? I don't know, but the future is definitely worrying.
Schools have been closed down in Nairobi and Mombasa following a walkout by thousands of teachers over pay rise. The teachers defied a court order which declared the strike illegal and are demanding a wage increase of between 100 to 300%. The court ruling was rejected as unconstitutional, with the teachers asserting their constitutional right to strike. Secondary school teachers and university lecturers are set to join the strike later this week when their institutions open for the new term. The government has yet to comment on the strike. In Nairobi, the country's capital, protesting teachers held up posters saying teachers cannot eat rats and we are tired of empty promises. The strike was called by trade unions representing 250 teachers, according to the BBC. Despite the country's economic crisis, thousands of young virgins take part in the annual Reed dance to pay homage to King Swati. Let's hear more from Natalie Muzunga.
Thousands of young virgins from Swaziland and the Eastern Cape in South Africa arrived at the Ludzizini royal residence to pay homage to King Mswati III on Sunday in the annual Reed Dance. The Umhlanga Reed Dance, which takes place over 8 days, is a traditional dance and ceremony where up to 80,000 Swazi virgins gather and dance for the Queen Mother, attracting thousands of tourists to a country currently facing economic hardship. The century-old event is aimed at paying tribute to the Swazi royal family. Royal Swazi Princess Simile participates in the dance every year. In a country with the highest HIV/AIDS prevalence, she says it makes her proud to still be a part of the Reed Dance Maidens at 24 years old.
I like to go there because I am a virgin, and I want to show that I am a virgin.
Despite the negative perception of the Reed Dance, Simile fully embraces the age-old tradition.
There are many girls out there, thousands. We enjoy it very much and we dance for our king, and it's nice.
The reeds are dropped off at the royal residence, where they dance before the king, Queen Mother, and thousands of the king's guests. The king may choose a wife if he wishes to. Swazi King Mswati III, who has at least a dozen wives and a personal fortune estimated at $200 million, faced unprecedented protests 18 months ago, when his appointed administration ran out of money after a 2009 recession in neighboring South Africa. South Africa is scheduled to release a tranche of 3 equal payments, totaling $285 million bailout to Swaziland. Swaziland will repay the loan over a 5-year period starting in 2015 by means of a debit order placed on their revenue shares from the Southern African Customs Union.
Over 60 suspected cattle rustlers have been killed by villagers in southern Madagascar, say police. The alleged cattle thieves were killed using stones, axes and spears in Anosi, about 1,000 kilometers south of the capital, Antananarivo. Another separate incident saw more than 10 people killed after suspected cattle rustlers clashed with police. Cattle rustling is said to be a big problem in Madagascar. Large gangs have regrouped to steal cattle, which are highly prized possessions in some communities. Police said that reinforcements had been sent to the area to prevent reprisals. Theft of the homed cattle, a prized breed in parts of southern Madagascar, has over the years surged and even getting violent. Clashes between the police and rustlers have left injuries in both camps. Australia is giving aid in tens of millions to Jordan in order to help ease the financial strain on the country, providing refuge to tens of thousands of Syrian refugees. This follows a joint appeal from the United Nations and Jordan on Saturday, calling for assistance for the growing crisis. About 26,000 Syrians live in temporary shelter at the Zatari refugee camp near the Syrian border. The government of Jordan reckons there are some 140,000 Syrians dispersed throughout the country. Many Syrians have fled their country following a crackdown by President Bashar al-Assad, who has refused to step down and launched an offensive instead. Let's hear more from Andrew Harper, a UNHCR representative.
Just under 300 crossed the borders into Jordan last night. The numbers are quite lower than previous weeks, and that's because of activities on the other side, which is restricted movements coming across, but also things just as like the full moon, which makes it difficult for people to cross because it's people much more visible, so they much prefer to come across during cover of darkness.
At least 2 U.S. consulate workers have been killed and 4 injured in a bomb blast in Pakistan. The U.S. consulate employees were wounded in a bomb attack on their vehicle in the Pakistani city of Peshawar earlier today. There has been no claim of responsibility for the attack, which left a crater at the scene of the blast on a busy street. Suspicions abound that Pakistan's Taliban, who are close to Al-Qaeda, could be responsible. Attacks in East in recent months, but it is not very clear if it is down to military offences or a tactical shift. Around 47 policemen have been wounded in Northern Ireland following clashes between Catholics and Protestants over the rights to hold rival parades. Riots generally erupt during the summer months when pro-British Protestant groups hold traditional parades that are seen as provocative by Catholic Irish nationalists, many of whom want to be part of a united Ireland. The disturbances followed a march by Catholic Irish nationalist band in an area where pro-British Protestant groups were recently barred from marching. The police had fired water cannon after protesters from both sides grew violent, throwing bottles and stones at officers trying to separate the rival groups in North Belfast. The former News International Chief Executive, Rebecca Brooks, has appeared yet again before a court earlier today to face charges relating to phone hacking. The 44-year-old was charged with illegally intercepting voicemail messages when she oversaw Rupert Murdoch's British newspaper group. She stepped down as Chief Executive of News International in July of last year, following revelations of phone hacking by reporters at one of her papers. Over 50 journalists and public officials have been arrested on suspicion of hacking or corrupt relationships. The public Leveson inquiry exposed close ties between Murdoch's inner circle and top government officials. The phone hacking scandal has rocked News Corp, putting it under the spotlight. Many senior politicians have also been embarrassed, including Prime Minister David Cameron, over close ties with Murdoch. Now is off to Egypt, where a BBC investigation has unearthed that the UK government has failed in its commitment to freeze assets of the regime of former Egyptian leader Hosni Mubarak. Egyptians have accused the UK for harboring stolen wealth and breaching international anti-corruption accords. Documents available in the public domain have revealed property and companies linked to key figures in the Mubarak circle that are yet to be affected by the sanctions. Though the UK says it is doing all it can to trace funds embezzled by Mubarak's toppled regime, it took 37 days for Britain and other EU states to apply the sanctions. Egypt claims that the officials were able to move the funds within this period. About £85 million of assets belonging to Mr. Mubarak, his wife, 2 sons and 15 other Egyptians have now been frozen in the UK. The head of Egypt's Illicit Gains Authority, Assem Al-Gohari, said the British government is obliged by law to help them. He added that Britain is not willing to make an effort to recover all the money. In his words, they have been told by the UK government to give evidence why they are in Egypt looking for the money in the UK. Now it's off to the Vatican, where one slotted to become the next pope, one of Italy's most revered cardinals, has stunned the Catholic Church by issuing a damning opinion from the grave that the institution needs a transformation. Following Cardinal Carlo Maria Martini's death last Friday, the leading daily paper, Corriere della Sera, printed the 85-year-old's final interview, in which he attacks the church and its leadership for being 200 years out of date. Insiders in the church believe the cardinal wanted the interview published after his death. The cardinal's body has been laid out in Milan Cathedral since Saturday noon for people to pay the last respects. Thousands of people came to attend his funeral, which took place today afternoon. However, conservative voices in the church sought to repair the damage caused by the Cardinal Martini's criticism. Marco Tacquiano, the editor of the bishop's daily paper Avvenire, accused the mainstream press of distorting the cardinal's comments. The Australian government, in a bid to discourage asylum seekers, has launched a multilingual online campaign video posted on YouTube website. This move comes as Australia prepares to open detention centres in the Pacific Island nations of Nauru and Papua New Guinea to deter refugee boats from reaching Australia and preventing sinkings. Asylum seekers often set off from Indonesia, Sri Lanka, Pakistan or Afghanistan, heading for Australia's Indian Ocean territory of Christmas Island. Since 2001, almost 1,000 people are believed to have died at sea while trying to reach Australia. The turnout of protesters in Charlotte, in North Carolina, prior to the Democratic National Convention has been lower than expected. Police in Charlotte were ready on Sunday for several thousand protesters to show up for the rally ahead of the convention. Those present were lower than the 10,000 anticipated by the organizers. The march, which wove through the streets of downtown Charlotte, passing through the convention center, attracted around 800 people. The gathering was made up of 80-plus groups that make up the coalition to march on Wall Street South. The 3-mile march was supposed to put a spotlight on Charlotte, America's second-largest financial center after New York. How about we get some reactions from Coalition to March on Wall Street's Ben Carroll and protester Efia Waganza?
We're going to organize and we're going to fight back, and that people feel really frustrated and rejected by the political system, that politicians of both parties aren't doing anything to represent the interests of people, and at the end of the day are representing the interests of these same banks and corporations right here in Charlotte.
Because the Democrats claim to be people-oriented, the Democrats claim to represent workers, the Democrats claim to represent the interests of people of color, the Democrats claim to represent the interests of youth, the Democrats claim to be interested in fair housing, the Democrats claim to be interested in an equitable economic system, and therefore we say to them, be true to what they claim is their standard.
In Bolivia's capital city of Las Paz, usually saturated with traffic, cars were cleared to make way for the country's Day of the Pedestrian and Cyclist. The streets were turned into playgrounds for street artists, performers in various sports activities. Now in its second year, the popular nationwide event has given young families an opportunity to take to the streets without fear of cars. This National Day of the Pedestrian and Cyclist is also seen to celebrate Bolivia's 17,000 hectares of protected areas, which include national parks and wildlife reserves. We have a look again at today's major headlines. South African miners are finally cleared of murder charges, but the age-old apartheid law raises some serious questions about overhaul of the judicial system since the end of apartheid 18 years ago. Another oil spill. How much more can Nigerian waters take as ExxonMobil reports spills stretching over 15 miles? And are the wounds really healed as a march unveils the sectarian divide between Catholics and pro-British Irish Protestants in Belfast? That's it for now. Thank you for watching, and for more news updates, please do visit our website at www.voxafrica.co.uk/news. This one. Okay. That's it for now. Thanks for watching, and for more news updates, please do visit our website at www.voxafrica.co.uk/news. Goodbye.